Welcome to the True Man Podcast. This is an invitation to radical reconstruction of a man's masculine heart and soul in a place of safe community where we dare to ask questions deep seated inside a man and explore ways to help you become a better man, a better son, a better dad, and a better spouse. Well, welcome back to the True Man Podcast. I am officially kicking off my first full podcast from my home right here, close to the Arkansas Razorbacks here in Northwest Arkansas. Boy, what a journey my wife and family have been on the last few weeks. My son stayed back in Georgia. He's working full time. My wife Jill and I are here busy unpacking boxes. But in between all that, hey, we need to record a new True Man podcast. But we are exceptionally glad to be in our home. So, if the sound feels a little off, we're still trying to work through some of the bugs here. So forgive me if there's a little echo to this. It doesn't sound normal to me, but it's more important to get the message out to you. Now, in the coming weeks, there are going to be more changes. Well, the True Man podcast and True Man Life Coaching will continue. They will now fall under the umbrella of the American Family Renaissance, a project that I have been working on now for a few months, actually. I've got a great team of people behind me. There's going to be more to come on that in the next few weeks as we begin to roll out an entire new web page, and we're going to dive more into the American family and the American family values that seem to be so missing right now. And we're going to kick all that off with our very first Men's Summit, the American Family Renaissance Men's Summit. More to come on that. You'll be able to see that as soon as we get the new podcast out, or the new website out, excuse me. But today, let's get straight on into the podcast. I've learned something interesting about moving in the last few weeks, not just physically moving from one state to another, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually moving from one season of life into another. Maybe you've experienced this if you physically moved. There's a lot that goes on. And a move has a way of exposing things. It exposes what matters, it exposes what you value. It exposes what you've been carrying, and sometimes it exposes what you've been waiting on. Now, over the past several weeks, as my wife Jill and I have packed a lot of boxes, loaded trucks, said goodbye to Georgia, and made the move to Arkansas, I've had a lot of time to think in between everything going on. A lot of windshield time, some quiet moments, a lot of reflection outside of the business that comes with moving. And one thought just kept coming back to me over and over again. And that is this: most people spend their lives waiting when they should be moving. And I'm not necessarily talking about moving like I did, physically changing and moving to another state, but most people spend their life waiting for certainty, waiting for the perfect opportunity, waiting for confidence, waiting for the right time, waiting for, well, you fill in the blank. But life rarely works that way. Success rarely knocks on your front door. You usually have to go looking for it. Isn't that what you've experienced? And that truth really hit me hard during this move, maybe more so than ever before, because there was action behind, so much action and energy behind what we were doing. Now, I recently came across I get an daily email from the Napoleon Hill Foundation, and so you're going to hear me talk a lot about Napoleon Hill today. And if you haven't read the book Think and Grow Rich, why? You really should, but But it's funny how God's timing on everything. So, this article called Success Rarely Knocks, You Must Go Looking for It showed up in my email box. And, the moment I read it, something clicked with me, given everything that has been going on, because it described exactly what I've been learning in this season of life. So in that email, it said, many people spend their lives waiting for the right opportunity, waiting for the right connection, waiting for the right timing or the right circumstances. But success rarely arrives unannounced at the front door. More often than not, it hides behind effort, persistence, and initiative. That's it right there, man. That is it right there. Effort, persistence, and initiative. Three things most people talk about, but far fewer actually live it out. You see, most men don't fail or get ahead because they lack potential. They fail because, well, they hesitate. They wait too long. They overthink. They look for certainty where certainty doesn't exist. We've talked a lot about that in the last few weeks. And while they wait, well, life just keeps on moving, doesn't it? Strangely enough, the world keeps turning. And one of the biggest lessons I've learned over the years, I believe, is this: God rarely gives you the entire picture up front, but He does give you the next step. That's it. And your willingness to take that step in faith, which is the journey I've been on here over the last few weeks, often determines whether you stay stuck or you move into the life He's calling you toward. Now, this move to Arkansas for my family, it wasn't just logistical. It wasn't just about a address change. It represented movement toward family, movement toward connection, movement toward peace, movement toward a deeper understanding of who I'm becoming. And here's what I've realized: if we had waited until everything felt perfect, polished, completely figured out, well, we'd probably never move, would we? Because life doesn't hand out certainty that way. The most meaningful things in life happen while you're moving, not while you're standing still. You build confidence through action. You build momentum through action. You build clarity through action, not before. That's one of the great lies that men often believe. I'll move once I feel ready. No, you won't. Because readiness is often created in motion. Think about it. How many people spend years talking about what they want to do? Start the business, write the book, fix the marriage, get healthy, strengthen their faith, move somewhere new, take a chance. But they never move because they're waiting for a feeling. They're waiting for fear to disappear. They're waiting for guaranteed success. And meanwhile, well, opportunities quietly pass them by. Now back to Napoleon Hill. He also wrote this quote: dreams alone are never enough. Ideas only gain value when they are backed by action. Now that's powerful, because dreams without action become frustration. Potential without movement becomes regret, and ideas without execution remain fantasies. Now, the truth is, most men already know what they should do. They just haven't committed to doing it. Now, that's the hard part, isn't it? Commitment. Because commitment requires movement before certainty. Now, I think one of the reasons that this move to Arkansas has impacted me so deeply is because I've seen firsthand what happens when you stop waiting and you start moving. Not recklessly, not foolishly, but intentionally. And let me say this, the move itself went incredibly well. We had a few hiccups. You're not going to achieve perfection, but the move went incredibly well, far more than I expected it might. Now, sure, there's always business that comes with a move, boxes, closing details, paperwork, exhaustion, to say the least, and schedules that don't always marry up. But beneath all of that, there's been something deeper for me. And I'm really seeing it as we begin to finish this all up and get unpacked, and that is gratitude. One of the things that has impacted me the most is how willing, how open people have been to help. Family, friends, people opening their homes, people checking in, people showing kindness in small but great ways. And it reminded me of something very important. You were never meant to do life alone. You see, there's strength in community, strength in family, strength in having people around you who genuinely care. And over the past several weeks, Jill and I have experienced that in very powerful ways. Being closer to family again has been refreshing. There's something grounded about reconnecting with people who know your story, people who've seen you grow, people who knew you before the titles, before the achievements, before the noise of life. And there's a lot of peace in that. And I think sometimes men get consumed with building in their lives, quote unquote, building, that they forget what they're actually building for. We chase success, but we lose connections. We pursue achievement, but we neglect relationships. And eventually we wake up wondering why we feel empty despite accomplishing things. Success without connection is hollow. And this move reminded me of that in a very real way. Now, I've watched family laugh together again. We've shared meals, great conversations, the stories, just simple moments. And honestly, those moments matter more than most of the things that we spend our lives stressing about. And what I've come to understand is I think God uses transitions to recalibrate us, to remind us of what actually matters, to strip away some of those distractions in our lives, to realign priorities. And this move has done that for me. Now, it's funny. Years ago, when I left Arkansas, I left feeling uncertainty, just uncertain about everything. And now I've come back with peace. Not because life is perfect. It certainly isn't. You know that. Not because I suddenly have every answer. Of course I don't. But because I've learned something over the years. And that is this: peace doesn't come from certainty. Peace comes from trust. Trust in God, trust in the process, trust that movement in the right direction matters more than standing still ever will. And that brings me back to this idea of success. Most people think success is one big breakthrough moment, one giant opportunity, one life-changing event. But most success is far less glamorous than that. It's built quietly, daily, consistently. Napoleon Hill said this, another great Napoleon Hill quote: most victories are built behind the scenes through discipline, preparation, and repeated effort. Now, that's true in every area of life: your marriage, your faith, your health, your purpose, your business. You see, the big moments people see are usually built on thousands of small moments nobody nobody saw or even knew about. Discipline matters, consistency matters, showing up matters. And one thing I've learned through this move is this: movement creates momentum. Once you start moving, doors begin opening, clarity begins coming, people begin appearing, and opportunities begin revealing themselves. Not all at once, but gradually, step by step. That's why sitting still can be dangerous, because stagnation convinces you that nothing is possible. Movement reminds you life is still unfolding. Now, don't get me wrong in all this. Being in the quiet, listening for God's voice, and being with Him is still incredibly important. But Jesus and the disciples were always on the move. And often we read in scripture that God just needed a moment to go off on his own and speak with his Father. So there's value in quiet, but there's also tremendous value in being in action. And some of you listening right now are standing at a crossroads in your life. You know, there's a step that you probably need to take: a conversation, a decision, a risk, a move, a change. But fear has frozen you. And I understand that. You know, fear is real. It's very real. Uncertainty is real. But here's what I need you to hear: waiting forever will not remove uncertainty. It only delays growth. You know, at some point, every man's got to decide for himself. And am I going to spend my life waiting, or am I going to move? And let me clarify something important. Movement does not always mean physical relocation. Sometimes movement means finally addressing your health, finally repairing your marriage, finally pursuing your calling, finally asking for help, finally becoming the man that you know you were capable of becoming. So movement begins the moment you stop making excuses. You know, one of the coolest things I love about this quote I'm to give you from Napoleon Hill is this. One of the things I love from Napoleon Hill is this great quote: "The opportunities you seek are often waiting just beyond the point where most people stop trying." That is incredibly powerful, because most people quit too early. They stop one step before the breakthrough, one difficult season before growth, one hard conversation before healing. But men who continue moving, men who remain faithful, men who keep showing up eventually experience things some people will never experience. Not because they're more talented, but because they refuse to stop. And let me say this carefully: I don't think God honors perfection nearly as much as he honors faithfulness. Just keep moving, keep growing, keep trusting, keep showing up. That's how life change. Not overnight, over time. So as I sit here now in my new office in Arkansas, trying to figure out how to get the best high quality sound I can for a podcast, surrounded by new routines, some familiar faces, it's still the beginning of a new season. And I can honestly say this move has strengthened my perspective And I'm looking forward to understanding that more. It's reminded me that life is meant to be lived forward, not cautiously observe from the sidelines. And maybe that's the message somebody listening today needs to hear. Stop waiting for perfect conditions. Stop waiting for guaranteed outcomes. Stop waiting for life to come find you. Go after what matters. Go after growth. Go after healing. Go after purpose. Go after the life God placed inside your heart long ago. Because success rarely knocks. You usually have to move toward it. And sometimes the greatest thing waiting for you on the other side of movement is not success itself, it's who you become in the process. And that's what this move has reminded me of. I'm not the same man who left Arkansas years ago. Life shaped me. Uh, Failure shaped me? No. Faith shaped me? Yes. Marriage shaped me? You bet. Friendships have shaped me, and God has shaped me the most. And now I step into this season differently, just much more grounded, much more grateful, much more aware of what truly matters. So, wherever you are today, let me remind you of this. You do not have to have everything figured out to move forward. You just simply have to be willing to take the next step. Build a plan, make the call, have the conversation, take the risk, and just trust God enough to move because action changes things. Action creates momentum. And momentum, well, that creates opportunity. So I'm going to leave you with another Napoleon Hill quote. Action is the real measure of intelligence. How about that? Not intention, not potential, not ideas, action. So move towards growth, towards healing, towards purpose, towards faith, toward the life waiting for you on the other side of fear. And trust this: God can do a lot with a man willing to move. Well, thank you so much for listening today. So excited to record this podcast for you in my new digs, my new office, and not quite sure how we're going to improve the sound, but we always figure it out, and we always will on the True Man podcast and on True Man Life Coaching, because that's what we're all about. That little motto, and we didn't talk much about this today, and I have talked about this before: it shall be done. It shall be done. Make that your motto. Make that your motto. If you want to talk more about the podcast, the topic today, just reach out to me at mike@truemanlifecoaching.com. Go out to my website, sign up for the newsletter. We've had to reformat a few things with the new website, but we're going to get that out to you on a very consistent basis. But you can always go out to Mike at truemanlifecoaching.com if you want to send me an email. My calendar's on my website as well. But I just want to say it means so much to have you listen on a weekly basis. And if there's anything in addition to all this that you'd like me to talk about on the True Man podcast, send me an email. Let me know. And if you have anybody you'd like me to connect with here in the northwest part of Arkansas, hey, let me know. I'd love to connect with them. I am out meeting new people as much as I can be in between digging through these boxes. So I want to say thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please go out and leave me a great review on your favorite podcast channel. And I want to encourage you, go out, be in action, and live your best life. And go out and make this your very, very best day ever. God bless you, and thank you for listening.